I'm Jordan Hatfield, and this is Faster Film Critic. Today on the show, we discuss Wicked with Chase Fugel and special guest Blake Lazinski. Wicked is a 2024 musical fantasy flick directed by John M. Chu. The film sets out to answer the age-old question, is it pronounced Galinda or Glinda? Wicked stars Cynthia Erivo, Ariana Grande, Jeff Goldblum, and Michelle Yeoh. Get in, we are going cinephilin'. Blake, thank you for joining us. We are really excited to have you on the podcast today.
I'm really excited to be here. Long-time listener, first-time, I guess, caller.
That's right.
Whatever it is. I love the show. And, Jordan, I am a big fan of you, so I am excited to be involved.
I appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. And how are things out in Manhattan?
Yeah, Manhattan's great, man. It's nice today. It's supposed to rain tomorrow. We were going to go to the Thanksgiving Day parade tomorrow, but it's going to rain all day, so we will just be watching it like everybody else tomorrow.
Well, I'm sorry to hear about the rain, but despite that, Manhattan seems like such a cool place to live. I'm jealous. I would love to live there myself. There's always a ton of cool shows there, including 21 years ago, the Broadway premiere of Wicked.
I didn't watch it then, but I read the book around the time the Broadway came out. So I have a long history with this show that's based on a movie, that's based on a book, that's based on it just kind of keeps going back.
So Blake, I have to ask, how closely does this film follow the original Broadway musical?
It's really interesting. What Wicked, the movie, does really well is it pays homage to the musical without feeling like it's a filmed Broadway stage show, right? And I think that's one of the things off the bat that I really enjoyed about it. It added context to characters. It let scenes breathe that don't get to breathe in the stage show. And you got to see these characters in these situations where when you go to the stage show, which I've gone about a half dozen times, and I love it every time, but you don't get to see the emotion as much. It's presented very differently. So I really appreciated what they did here in that they didn't just copy the stage show. They really made it its own thing while feeling very familiar at the same time.
So I've only seen the stage show once. I saw it at the Capitol Theater in Salt Lake City. I was dating a girl at the time who I was really excited about. And I bought tickets to see it. I threw down, man. I got great seats. I was like second row center. And we go to the Capitol Theater to see it. And I'm not a big musical theater fan. And I'm not going to lie, I was dreading it a little bit. I was doing this for her. I was trying to impress her, I was expecting to just kind of grit my teeth and get through it. I was blown away by this stage play. I thought it was absolutely incredible. I think I liked it more than she did. I remember walking out of it and it was like my hair was blown back. I could not believe what I had just witnessed. If you haven't seen the play Wicked and you get an opportunity, do not let it pass you by. This stage play was absolutely incredible, and it opened my mind, opened my eyes, and changed my opinion on what musical theater could be. I just thought it was absolutely incredible.
One of the things about Wicked that is said time and time again is the stage show is about as cinematic as a Broadway musical gets. It hits emotions and hits the high points so well that it is the biggest draw here for people who are coming out of town because it is the stage show, like the gateway Broadway musical, because it is so cinematic, and that Act 1 end with Defying Gravity. I mean, if you don't come out of that blown away, I don't think you have a heart.
Right.
It's just one of those things where it's done in such a way that everybody can really appreciate and love that show. And I think that's why we've seen such longevity with it.
Absolutely. So let's shift gears. Let's talk about the movie a little bit. Now, Chase, you haven't seen the stage play. Is that correct?
I haven't seen it in a long time.
Okay, so you have seen the play. What were your expectations walking into the film Wicked?
I wasn't really sure how to feel. I like musicals. I enjoy going to see them. I wouldn't consider myself a fan of them, but I'm definitely able to recognize the praise that Wicked has received for, as you said, 21 years since its Broadway release. And even before that, the novel was kind of a cult classic. It was pretty popular. So I was going into this film, from the perspective of a film-obsessed high school student who's not very into theater. I was really excited to see what the screen could really bring to the story. There's so much more potential for improvement, to build the world, to expand. That's really what I was looking for.
So, by the way, the name of the book is The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West by Gregory Maguire. So if anyone's wondering, that's the book we're referencing here. I saw the first trailer for Wicked, and I'm not going to lie, guys, I went, uh-oh. The first trailer for Wicked seemed so over the top, almost live-action cartoonish in some ways. It seemed really cheesy. The Broadway play was so spectacular, I thought, I don't know that a movie can ever live up to that reputation. And based on the first trailer, I wasn't sure what to expect. I walked into this film with lower expectations than I would have just knowing the name of the film by itself. But I was surprised. I was caught off guard. I actually really enjoyed this film. Blake, what were your thoughts?
As I told you when we decided that we were going to do this together, I can't be objective about Wicked. I can't be objective about this movie or the play or anything because it is one of my big loves. But as somebody who is a huge fan of the stage play, you always have that kind of nervous, like, are they going to mess this up? Are they going to blow this chance? Which we as fans of the play have been waiting for this movie for a very long time because it is such a cinematic story.
I'm surprised it took them so long.
And yeah, and then you start to see who's attached to it. Cynthia Erivo, who is Broadway royalty, and Ariana Grande, who I know a lot of people questioned that casting, but I have young kids, young girls who watch her Nickelodeon shows or did watch her Nickelodeon shows. And I saw how funny and manic she is. And I thought, oh, this is a no-brainer. She's going to be great as Glinda. Also, she has, just an incredible voice. And then when they announced John M. Chu was attached to it, and this was just after he had done In the Heights, I thought, oh, okay, this movie is in great hands. I still had a nervous energy coming into the theater and was blown away by the movie. I absolutely adored it from minute one till the insane almost 3-hour mark. I loved the movie. Absolutely loved it.
Well, you're not the only one. On Rotten Tomatoes, this film currently has a crazy 96% audience approval rating, which is really high. It is the third biggest opening of 2024, behind Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. So this has been a massive film. It's been the biggest opening weekend all time for a Broadway adaptation. It had $163 million global revenue, which surpassed Les Mis, which was the biggest. This is the fourth best opening weekend for a musical ever. The three that beat it are Disney movies: The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Frozen 2. So this film has been shattering records, and people are absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit more about Cynthia Erivo and her role in this. You say that she is a legend in the theatrical space. She has won a Tony, she has won an Emmy, she has won a Grammy, and she's been nominated for 2 different Oscars. If she wins an Oscar, she will have the rare and highly coveted EGOT, which is Emmy, Grammy, Oscar, and Tony.
Wow.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is. I honestly didn't realize she had won so many awards. I thought her performance in this was great, though. Even Ariana Grande, I was really skeptical. But, I have to say, Blake, you were right.
Where Ariana Grande comes in, and she's probably the biggest piece of this movie as far as her performance goes. She has a big performance. She is out there. She is chaotic. But Cynthia Erivo's warmth and stillness through especially the first 2/3 of this film, it's really what carries it from minute 1 to minute 160. What Cynthia Erivo brings is the heart and soul of this movie, really brings it together. You as an audience, okay, here's the Wicked Witch. How is she going to act? She comes in with kindness and warmth throughout it. And I think it just doesn't work if she doesn't bring in such a warm performance, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I found her captivating, and the way she portrayed subtle emotions and differences in her emotions in such subtle ways. I thought she was brilliant.
I wasn't expecting from a Broadway actor. Usually everything's so dramatic, so over the top, but she really did good with subtlety in this film.
It's exciting to see a film that understands, again, that this is a film first and a musical second. A lot of times musicals are musical first and forget about the film part. And I feel like it really captured, especially the emotions in these performances really well, where it gives it time to breathe. Those facial expressions and those reactions from Cynthia are really given the time that they need to in this movie to really pay off.
That is a really good point, Blake. I'm not a huge fan of musicals. There are musicals that I love, but I hate musicals where they sing just to sing, where they sing every word and it doesn't rhyme. It doesn't feel like a song. It's just singy throughout the whole film. And oftentimes I do feel like the music comes before everything else. You're absolutely right. This film is not that way. Every single song they sing feels like it has a purpose and it has a place, and it moves to drive the story forward. Very well done in that aspect.
Yeah, you worry about a 2 hour and 40-minute half story, really is what this comes down to, right? Because there's a whole other part of this story that part 2 is going to tell. But when you sit down and watch this movie from end to end, there's only about 10 scenes in this movie, and they're all kind of built around these fantastic numbers and cinematic maximalism is what I like to call it.
Ooh, good description.
Yeah, where at the end of it, you go, oh, okay, like I get like 2 hours and 40 minutes. What would they have cut? I don't know. I don't know what they could have cut. And it didn't feel quite as long as I felt like it could have for a half a story.
It didn't. In fact, I went and saw it with my daughter, and when we walked out, she thought it was just intermission. She thought we were going back in to see the second half immediately.
That's funny.
It's a 365-day intermission.
Right.
Yeah.
That intermission is going to feel longer for me than I would have expected. I'm excited to see how this wraps up. I saw the play a long time ago, and there are a lot of details I don't remember. And Chase, as you hinted to, there's a lot in this movie that they bring out that wasn't in the play. I'm excited to see how this resolves, because I've forgotten. While we're talking about the music, did you guys have a favorite song? What was your favorite song in this film?
Ooh, I'm not sure if I had a favorite. I was impressed. I didn't think I would like the music so much.
I really liked Popular. I liked
Popular
that
was good.
more than I expected. I thought that whole scene was really well done. I thought it was great.
I don't know if I have a favorite. I was surprised by No One Mourns the Wicked. This is the point where when you go to the stage show, this is a very operatic number at the beginning of what's supposed to be one of the most popular musicals of all time. And so it always, like, even after I've seen it so many times, I'm always surprised to be like, yes, this is an extremely operatic song. And are they going to do this in the movie? Because it comes out of the blue, right? You're expecting Popular, you're expecting Defying Gravity, almost these like pop, very big balletic songs. And you start with this opera. I mean, it's an opera song. And how well they nailed it. And Ariana's voice, and they sing live in this show, by the way, in this movie. This is all live on set singing. And the fact that Ariana and this cast can come in and do this operatic song and have it be so big and so cinematic and feel like it's a great kickoff for that movie was really surprising to me. I didn't know if they could pull that off. And the minute Ariana came down and started singing with that cast, I'm like, oh, okay, we're in great hands. We're in for a great experience here.
Another thing I really appreciated about the film is they use a lot of practical sets with CGI.
Yeah.
Clearly there's a lot of CGI in this film, but it's a lot less green screen than I expected. And I think that really worked as far as creating an environment that felt more real than it did computer generated. You've both hinted at it already. This film is big. This film is bright. This film is very beautiful. It's a very cool place to spend 2 hours and 40 minutes as we're watching these characters along their path in this story. I don't know how you can sit through this film and not appreciate that aspect. Even if you don't appreciate the story or the songs, there's a lot here to capture your eye and keep you entertained just from a visual standpoint.
You know what? I kind of have the opposite argument. The things that I loved so much about this film are in the story itself. That started in the book, that went to the Broadway play, and now to this movie. The DNA of this story is what I love so much. I could sit here and talk about how much I liked the characters, the development, the way that it went, the way that it kind of actually translated to the screen pretty well, having a good climactic arc. But I was hoping for a little bit more. I feel like they didn't really use their resources the way that they could have. But I don't know. I just wasn't satisfied. I mean, I've seen Marvel movies with some of the most insane world building and CGI and these whole cityscapes getting destroyed, and it looks spectacular. But every character in the story, the plot's just like a potato. Nothing.
Interesting. Yeah, I appreciated its more subtlety. I felt like I was in the fantasy and it felt a little bit more real. But you're right, it is toned down if we're going to compare it to a Marvel movie. Well,
I'm not saying a Marvel movie did it better or anything. I'm just saying when I look for a good movie, that's not what I look for. And I'm going to be honest, I don't really know what I was looking for this movie. Maybe I went in with some bias. I was hoping it was going to stay true to the original script and not change anything. But I was also hoping for enough change and enough creative liberty that it would make this worth it. Make the $150 million budget worth it. Even with the amazing sets and CGI, I still found that the colors were a little bit dull. I've seen multiple places where people are critiquing this, but really, I have to agree. I thought the colors were a little bit dull and it was a little underwhelming.
I've read and seen that as well. I don't know. I really like the old school approach. Overall, the tactile feel of this movie was what I was looking for. I think them building these sets somewhere on the Universal lot for both of these movies, because they filmed both of them. They filmed them both back to back. I think it was a brilliant move, and like Jordan, I feel like it did transport me more than some of these green screen heavy CGI movies have. But there are some points where I did feel like the scene was a little washed out. But the overall tactile nature of Shiz University and the Emerald City, like I felt like we were transported there because it looked lived in, it looked scuffed, it looked real, or as real as something like that can look.
One thing that turned me off on the original trailer was it felt like they had just dialed the contrast up to 10. You know how you log into Instagram and you see everyone's photos and these people are taking pictures and then they just drive the saturation up as high as they can, drive the contrast up as high as they can, and it just makes everything look so fake. After the first trailer, that's what I thought we were going to get. I thought they were going to drive the saturation all the way up, but that's not how it is. The film is very bright and very colorful, but I think they found the perfect balance. Let me ask this question. What was the weak spot of the movie? Blake, based on your comments, this may be a hard question for you to answer, but if you were to point to one thing and say, this is the weakness of the movie or the biggest weakness of the movie, what would that be?
The hardest thing about this movie for me is, like I said, I love the story so much. I thought the story was fantastic. On the surface, it's humorous and whimsical and bright, but underneath that, there's so many layers, so many themes that are just stacked on top of each other. You could dissect this story for hours. But my problem is that this story isn't unique to this film. What I love so much about this film was taken from the Broadway play, which was adapted from this book. When the Broadway play adapted the book, they really choreographed and wrote songs for this. So much effort went into it, but I feel like this one was more of just a copy-paste and put it on the screen.
I hear you. The adaptation from the theater to the screen doesn't bug me at all. In fact, I appreciate it. I think there's a lot to appreciate there, but I hear what you're saying, Chase. I do have a critique of this film, and it isn't just a critique of Wicked. It originates in the original The Wizard of Oz, and that critique is the Wizard of Oz himself. The writing around this character is really weak, both in the original film and in Wicked. As far as casting goes, I love Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz. I think he was a perfect casting choice, but the writing around his character, at least in part one, is very weak. You know, the Wizard of Oz is built up to be this masterful wizard, and he's not. And I know why he's not. He's an allegory for a number of different things. It can be interpreted a number of different ways, a government or a deity or what have you. There's a number of different ways he can be interpreted. But I always felt like, okay, if he's such a fraud to the extent that he's depicted in The Wizard of Oz and in Wicked, how did he gain such power and how does he remain in power? That's always a bit of a struggle for me.
I didn't think about that.
That's my biggest criticism. However, that is not what I would change. If I could change one thing in the movie Wicked, it would not be that. It would be a scene at the end. It's a widescreen shot. Elphaba is on her broom. She's flying on her broom and she's stationary. She's not moving at the moment. She's kind of hovering in space. And she's looking at the castle and the Wizard of Oz and Glinda's there. And Madame Morrible is there as well. They show this scene, they flash it up, and then it moves on. That scene only lasted about a second. I would have made that scene last like 10 seconds. Just her hovering there and them having this
you liked
stare
it that
off.
much.
I loved it. It was the
Okay.
most beautiful scene in the whole movie. And it came up and then it went and I was like, wait, like back up, like pause, rewind. I wanted that scene to just sit there.
You're talking about that wide shot.
The wide shot. Yeah, I thought it was absolutely gorgeous. And if I
Wow.
could change anything
Okay.
about it, that's what it would have been. There are things about
So
the
you
movie
would have wanted more.
I would have wanted more of that scene.
Okay.
There are parts of the movie that I didn't love that I would have changed, but my dislike for not having a longer version of that scene is greater than my dislike from some of the other scenes that didn't work as well for me. I just thought the scene was absolutely magnificent, and I would have loved for it to just sit there.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there. Like you could have actually turned like everything down, all the noise and everything like that, and that shot is so compelling. You're 100% right, and they should have stayed on that shot a little bit more.
Yeah.
I agree with that completely.
I loved it. I thought that scene was really impressive. And just the sky, the sun and the clouds and the colors, and I just thought it was beautiful. It was a tense face-off between them in this moment with no words, and it just flew too quick. Just let it sit there and really ingrain itself in our memories and our psyches and in our understanding of this story. I thought that film was great. If I could change anything about the film, that's what it would have been.
This has been my problem with Wicked from stage to movie. And so this isn't really an attack on the movie. I think they did a good job on really letting some of these things breathe. But I would say the switch between, Elphaba and Glinda hating each other to just being really good friends happens so quickly in this story. The loathing song to the popular song happens so quickly. And they do a really good job of showing that transformation in the Ozdust Ballroom, which argumentatively is the most important scene in the movie. But I do feel like the catalyst behind that feels a little bit rushed. I never felt like between the stage show and this, there was enough motivation for them to go from singing, a 4-minute song about hating each other to being best friends. I just never felt like that relationship was built enough. And that's always been my biggest critique about this show.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. So let me ask this question. Do you guys like the play better or do you guys like the movie better?
I have to say, without a doubt, the play.
I look at them as two very different things. And Chase said it was sort of a copy and paste. And I think it's hard to say it's a copy and paste from my point of view because so much work has to go into converting this into something that is consumable on film. I think too the loathing song, right? Loathing, da da da. The amount of work, the amount of camera work and choreography, and if you listen to the sound on that song, and it's not only the choreographed dancing, but you're also hearing choreographed steps and sound effects. and the lighting is choreographed, and all of these things that you just can't get on stage. You just will never be able to get on stage. Camera movements, pullback, walking with the choreography, seeing these facial expressions and how much these two can't stand each other, but also are kind of like have a strange attraction to each other in that there's like a respect or a curiosity there. You don't get that on the stage, and you can break the big songs up, No One Mourns the Wicked, The Wizard and I, Loathing, etc., and you can see how much work John M. Chu and his crew have put into making these things so tangible that you just don't get on stage. So like I said, they're two very different things that do very different things for me, but I am a person with a short-term memory. So if somebody's saying you can watch the movie again or the show right now, I'm going and watching the movie again.
Speaking of the movie versus the play, I also really appreciated the cameo from Idina Menzel, a.k.a. Adele Dazeem, and Kristen Chenoweth. I thought bringing them back, they were the original roles of Elphaba and Glinda. I thought bringing them in for a quick cameo and having them sing a song together, I thought that was a nice touch. Maybe to be expected. I don't know that it surprised anybody, but I still appreciated it. I thought it was cool to see them on screen. They are legends because of their roles in this play. I thought it was great.
The first time I saw this movie was at the AMC across the street from Juilliard. And so that AMC is just always filled with performers and theater kids. And I have not heard a reaction to a film like when Idina and Kristen came on since Thor's hammer with Captain America, being able to carry it in
That's
Endgame.
a good comparison.
People literally were freaking out. Like I didn't hear the first time I saw this, I didn't hear the first half of that song because people were screaming and cheering like it was like Endgame. I mean, this was literally a Marvel level massive cameo for these theater nerds that I like you wouldn't even be able to understand it unless you were like sitting in there. That's what it reminded me of, is this the portals and the hammer from Endgame opening night when I went and saw that. Like it was that big to theater fans.
That would have been pretty cool.
Yeah, that's incredible, man.
Yeah.
I wish we could all live the New York experience, at least with this film.
Yeah.
What about you, Jordan? What do you prefer, the play or the film?
Like you, Blake, for me, they're different. I went into the play expecting so little, and I got so much that it's an experience I'll probably never forget. I walked into this movie expecting something decent and got better than decent, but the difference in my expectations weren't the same. So the play will always have a special place in my heart. Again, I took my girlfriend at the time who became my wife, so there's some emotions there. It's special for me in that way. So I love and appreciate the play very, very much. And I thought the movie was absolutely fantastic. But if I had the opportunity to go see one or the other tonight, I'd be choosing the play.
I think there's something very special about the first time you see Defying Gravity live and the lights go down and the entire audience usually just like sits there for a good 2 or 3 minutes during intermission, just being like, oh my, like, what was that? Right? It's one of the great Act 1 enders in theater history. So having that feeling for the first time and just getting hit over the head with Defying Gravity and Act 1, and then all the things that follow, right? It's a very different tone in that second act. Like I said, they're both very special to me.
I think for me, what makes the biggest difference between the movie and the play is that when you watch the play, you can see that they utilize every inch of that stage and every bit of their creativity. And live, you can really feel the passion seep through it. But then I feel like with this movie that for me, there was so much missed opportunity. They didn't capitalize so much.
I do want to say that what John M. Chu has done with this and his previous film has really elevates the musical pieces of it beyond just kind of mailing it in. He uses the camera and uses the viewer's eye and uses light and sound in ways that I feel like transports you to where you don't feel like you're just watching a filmed version of a stage show. One movie that I always come back to on how not to do this, although it's a movie I enjoy, is The Greatest Showman. So The Greatest Showman does a lot of this, pull the camera back and watch them like you're watching a stage. You never get that really in these John Chu movies. The viewer is always right in the middle of the action. And so that's something I really appreciate about this movie.
I hope I can come to appreciate it. Hopefully, by the time this part 2 comes out, I'll be on your guys' same page. But for now, I'm waiting.
1 to 5. Let's go ahead and rate this film.
I'm sitting somewhere between 2.5 and 3 stars. I've got really mixed feelings because I love the story of this so much, but how much credit do I give the movie?
It's an easy 5 stars for me. This is my favorite film of the year. I think what they do here, the whole cast and crew, is almost impossible to where, you know, if you go and talk to the average theater kid who's gone and seen this, I'm sure I'm just echoing what they say. This is something we've looked forward to for a very long time. And for them to come out and not only deliver, but add things to the story and say, do you know what? This is so important to us that we're going to let this go over 5 hours of storytelling. And to be able to pull off the first 2 hours and 30 minutes in such a entertaining and spectacular, really emotional style, it's an easy 5 stars for me. And I will watch this movie a million times and never get sick of it.
I went into this movie expecting to give it about a 2.5. Wicked has surprised me. I really enjoyed this film. Blake, you give it a 5, and I agree with you. On so many different levels, this movie is a 5. I'm going to come in at 3.5, but that accounts for my personal tastes. I think the film itself and what it does is probably worthy of a greater rating than I'm giving it, and I admit to that. I give it a 3.5. That's where I land, and I think if you haven't seen it, this is one you got to check out in theaters. Go check it out.
If you enjoyed the vibrant, kinetic, larger-than-life musicality of Wicked, you will love John M. Chu's first foray into stage-to-screen adaptations. I'm talking about 2021's In the Heights. Based on the Tony Award-winning Broadway musical of the same name, In the Heights blends a cinematic energy with themes of family, identity, and belonging, all while making you laugh, dance, sing, and cry. Sound familiar?
Thank you for listening to Faster Film Critic, and please join us next week when we discuss It's a Wonderful Life. Yes, 1946, James Stewart, Donna Reed, we're excited. You can also follow us on Letterboxd, Cinetrack, and Instagram. Email us at fasterfilmcritic@gmail.com. Hit us up if you have any questions, comments, feedback, or review requests. And please share this episode with your movie-loving friends.